go out anywhere on kind of official sanctioned uni trips?
No.
No, that's for the geography students, which is what I did originally. Right, here we go. Thank you. So I've already covered off a lot of this. Anything I haven't covered? No, done that one. Here we are, look. So this is, if you come up from the station, anybody?
Yeah.
You will pass this every day. On your left-hand side as you start the huge kind of climb up the hill that is the trip from the station up to here. On the left-hand side, Sanderson House, second floor. This is us. Look at this. We even have fish. The mark of a law firm that has made it a small but highly efficient fish tank. Why not? It's really popular. So again, what do we do? So this is important. A lot of niche law firms will be niche in terms of they do one particular kind of law. So for instance, you'll see a lot of law firms that just do house moves, conveyancing, or residential and commercial, moving people, offices. You'd see a lot of law firms that do family law, and they just do family law. So, you know, support stuff, divorces, children's, all that kind of stuff, all those kind of things. We do a little bit of everything, but the niche is just the kind of businesses we work for. So if someone comes to us and says, well, I'm not a travel business, but can you do this or that for me? Even if it's something that we could do potentially as lawyers, we tend not to because we really just want to work in that particular sphere. And actually, for those of you that have kind of started to look at abroad at what you might do once you've qualified, you will see that a lot of law firms, even the big, me and Patrick were talking, even the big kind of glass fronted ones in Leeds Centre or in any kind of like centre, will tend to now be looking at sector specialisms within them. So they will have departments, but the departments will be more to do with the actual sectors that they work for: energy, industry, IT, tech, all this kind of stuff. And we do that. We do travel and leisure as our setup. So what do we do? This is kind of a list over 2 slides of the kinds of things that we do. It's not completely everything, but it's almost more or less in a journey of what you might need as a business if you were starting now as a travel and leisure business. So starting up, all the stuff, company law things, setting up a company, shares, memorandum of association, all that kind of stuff, articles of association, everything that is to do with actually setting up a business. It's relatively easy to do. Many of you might do it when you are kind of progressing from here, or you might have one already. There's nothing stopping you from setting up a business. It's highly exciting. It's a bit of a roller coaster. Regulatory advice, because again, the sector that people are going on into with regards to travel is quite highly regulated. Why? Because if you decide, I need a break, I'm jetting off to Tenerife or Mallorca or somewhere like that for a week just to get some sun, you are giving your money to someone else, usually quite far in advance, and they are holding on to that money, and then they deliver you the services. So there is a lot of regulation about what happens to that money whilst they are holding it. What happens if they go bust and you've given them £2 each? What happens? Refunds, repatriation if the holiday company goes bust whilst you're abroad. All this kind of stuff is covered off. And all the consumer rights type stuff as well, which you may or may not have covered off already, all factors into this, because most people will have at least one holiday or some kind of travel, whether it's business travel or an event or a school or university trip, etc., at least once a year. So it is everywhere. Terms and conditions. Again, if you look on the Jet2 website, I use them because I know they're local employer, so why not? They will have terms and conditions on their website saying what happens if you do book with them, if it's just a flight, if it's a package holiday, if it's something else that you can get from them. And those are the rules between you and them that kind of set out what will happen if there is a problem, if there is not a problem. What if you just need to change? All this kind of stuff. They need to be carefully drafted, again, in accordance with the law, in accordance with consumer regulations, in accordance with our own little rule set that we have in travel. Supplier contracts and negotiations, they are everywhere. Literally everything you do as a business, there is some kind of contract associated with it. Whether or not you're an employee of a business, you have an employment contract, the other businesses that you work with, the partners. So for instance, a tour operator, Matt Travel, let's say, I set up my own tour operator, I will have suppliers to provide you with the travel that you need, the holidays. So I might have a contract with an airline, a hotel, a transfer company abroad when you get there, all this kind of stuff. What happens if something goes wrong? People come to us during the pandemic, the whole world shuts down. We all enjoyed it to one degree or another. What a fantastic time. Let's hope that never happens again. When that happened, people came to us and said, what do I do in this situation? They owe me money or I owe them money. The first thing that we would say is, well, what's in the contract? Because it should spell out what you need to do, what the situation is. You might not even need to pay lawyers, sadly. That's the best thing, if you've got your contracts in place. That's all done. So we do a lot of that and negotiating them with other sides on behalf of our clients. Commercial agreements generally, and this applies just as much to it does to the water and the electricity as it does to anything else as well. Marketing and selling, compliance and advice. Again, the things that you say, this is kind of basic law stuff, isn't it? How you sell things, what you say, what you promise is really important, because if you say, I promise you will have the best holiday of a lifetime if you travel with Matt Travel, well, what happens if actually you don't have the best holiday of a lifetime? And is it my fault? Is it my company's fault? Maybe you went for the sun and it just rained. Maybe it stormed. Maybe you went on a cruise ship and it was just really bad weather and you were up and down and being sick all the time and all this kind of stuff. It's not necessarily anybody's fault if that happens. But again, you've got to be careful what you say. It's the usual stuff, but with a travel and leisure context, of which there is plenty. What else do we do? Every business has got employees. Even if you're on your own, technically, it's kind of how you are set up in terms of the business is important. So those kind of contracts with the company, employment contracts, direct to service contracts, etc., etc. And what happens when things go wrong? Maybe a staff member's not performing as well as you would like. Maybe they have a grievance with you. Maybe you have a grievance with them. All covered. Again, first turning point, any kind of issue, what's in the contract. Employment is no different. But there's a whole huge side to this now, and it seems to be growing all the time because it kind of comes under the employment side of things. Handbooks, policies on things, a lot of the kind of equality type stuff comes into this particular area. So it's really important to get it right. Who doesn't want to get it right? Answer: nobody. Everyone wants to try and get it right. Sometimes it goes wrong. So again, we can pick up with that. Data and GDPR sounds boring. Here's the thing: it is a little bit, but it mostly isn't, because it's so important. And we deal with it all the time in our lives. And the minute you say to someone, oh, let's do a session on GDPR, you can see people's kind of face sink. But in actual fact, it's the most important thing that we have, that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. And we are quite happy to sign away our lives without even really thinking about it. Go and pick up your new iPhone, switch it on, get it loaded up. Terms and conditions, yeah, accept. Did you read them? No, there's like 200 pages of this stuff. It's telling you what they are going to do with your data, with your name, with your preferences, all this kind of stuff. And yet we just click accept and we don't read it. It's far more important than that. Our data is used every single day in everything that we do, and knowing the law behind it to make sure that companies are in compliance with it and making sure you know what's going on with it is really, really important. So again, trying to kind of go through the kind of customer journey, if you like, of kind of things that we will do for travel and leisure businesses. Ultimately, things will go wrong. Again, particularly on the holiday side of things, the leisure side of things, you're going for a break, you're going for rest, you're going relaxation. Maybe you're not. Maybe you're going for something a bit more red-blooded, going on an adventure holiday. Climbing, kayaking, canoeing, going on the Inca Trail, going backpacking around, whatever. There is a lot of things happening there, a lot of moving parts, a lot of complexity. Things are going to go wrong. Bear in mind, again, saying as we were, not only are the holiday company taking your money a year in advance, something like that, you're booking a year in advance. So a lot of things can change between now and when you travel. So disputes, whether it's customers saying I wasn't happy with it, what are you going to do about it, whether or not it's kind of supplier side type stuff, business to business type things, you owe me money, I owe you money, all that kind of stuff. These things need to be ironed out. Going back to the contract side of things, if they're in place and well drafted, that's the starting point. But this happens. And again, for our travel and leisure clients, we can offer in-house support, whether it's kind of being there, if you like, kind of outsourced legal department temporarily or kind of almost full time. We've done lots of that down the years. We can help training and development, coming in, standing people, boring people to death with 200 slides. I try not to, but sometimes you have to because you can get into a lot of detail. It's the law. That means detail. You all know this. So sometimes there's no way around it. You've got to put the time in, you've got to put the effort in, you've got to kind of read through all these kind of things. But again, they can be delivered in a way which is a bit more accessible, we think. And again, as I say, largely anything that a travel and leisure business might need. And again, coming back to it, that's our thing. So if that sounds good, then Travlaw might be a decent place to come and do a placement, might be a decent place to come and do a bit of work. So what's it like to come to Travlaw? Obviously, you're only getting my side of things. You kind of need something a bit more objective because I'm bound to say it's good, and I think it is. But we always like to think ourselves as being a little bit different as a law firm. Now, I think we probably are. You've seen the fish tank, but lots of law firms have fish tanks. You've seen the purple carpet. Nah, it's just branding. And here's the thing. If you go on any law firm's website, what's one of the first things they'll say? We're a law firm that's different. It's like, well, if we're all saying it, then we can't all be different, can we? However, the proof is in the pudding. We were well ahead of the curve in terms of things like electronic working before it was fashionable, working from home before it was fashionable when the pandemic came along and basically everybody else had to catch up. Flexible working. We have a lot of staff that have been with us a long time. We have a lot of staff that do part-time hours. We have a lot of staff that have families and are looking for something where they can balance a legal career, which is hard. You should be already aware of this, but it's, if you're looking for an easy job as a career, you're in the wrong place, I'm afraid. But it can be very, very rewarding, especially if you find the right kind of role. And we try and provide for that. And I like to think we get it right more than we get it wrong. But again, not for me to say. We are a law firm regulated by the regulator, the Solicitors Regulation Authority. We have about 5 or 6 solicitors out of our team of 13. The rest are either on their way to becoming solicitors, trainee solicitors or paralegals, and some support staff as well. And we try to be different. We try to lead the way in terms of it's a fairly big pond. Again, some of the names that I've mentioned, these are big names that companies of any description, whether they're law firms or accountants or professional advisors or just cleaners or anything like that, would love to work with. And we're very proud of the companies that we work with, and they keep coming back again and again because we do a good job, and hopefully that will continue. It's as with so many things, a service industry. If you do a bad job, your clients will drop you like a stone and they will not feel bad about it. There is no God-given right. It's great to have amazing clients, whether it's just individuals that you're helping do a will or family stuff like I mentioned before, or whether it's big corporates and you're doing bigger things for them. It can ebb and flow. You'll sometimes do an excellent job and they won't use you again. Why? Who knows? Maybe they got a better offer. Maybe they're switching things around. Maybe they like the firm, they like the work, but they just didn't like you and they could have your jib. All these are the kinds of things that you will need to kind of perfect if you're going to be a success in the law. But I mentioned ITLN. So for instance, years ago, a lot of our clients are UK companies. It's an increasing number actually from overseas, and there's nothing wrong with that. We can help those companies dependent upon what the competency of law that they need. So for instance, currently helping an American company, they have an existing company, an existing brand in America. They want to bring it over to the UK. It works over there. Why not bring it here? We can advise them on that. I can't help them with their American side of things because I'm not an American lawyer. I'm not trained in it. So if they come to us and say, we'd like to work with you, we need someone to work with, can you advise us on the UK law side of things, particularly the law of England and Wales? Yes, we can. But we also found that clients are coming to us and saying, that's great, I also want to open up in Spain or Germany or start selling to those people. Can you help with that, Matt? No, I can't, because I'm not a lawyer with that competency. I've done my law degree, or in my case, a conversion course, and it was hard enough, as you know. So no, I'm not going to go and get a train to be a German lawyer. Plus, even if I did, you get the qualification, then you've got to be regulated, you've got to keep up to it. So the answer is, well, let's have a network. So if a client comes to us and says, I really want to kind of do this project where I'll need to get some advice from lawyers in Germany, in France, in Australia, and wherever, we have this international travel law network, as we call it, and we have lawyers that we can put them in touch with. And it works. It's great. But as I mentioned before, this is very much, there are all kinds of lawyers, and you will all find your own way. Some of you will go out today and say, that was a bit pointless. What was he on about? Some of you might kind of take away something from what I've said. Some of you might end up in something similar to what I'm describing here. Some of you will go to do all kinds of different types of law. And when I say there's different types of lawyers, there are some lawyers out there who excel at working with people, attracting new work, bringing in clients. Trust me when I say it's hard, but they're very good at that. Some lawyers are better at just being the force at home, if you like, working in the office, getting the work done, leading at the edge of technical advice, etc., etc. Some people try to do a bit of everything. There's no wrong answer to this. You will find your place. But either way, if you can't work with people, you're going to struggle. You've got to have some level of being able to work with the people, whether it's the people around you, working in a team, whether or not it's the partners in the business, whether or not it's the clients or other support people, etc., etc. You really need to be able to have some kind of people skills. Otherwise, the chances are it will not work. You can be the best technical lawyer in the world. Literally, I am the best lawyer in the world. If no one likes you, no one wants to work with you, you've still got bills to pay. They are going to get paid. You have to balance all these things. And collaboration is key. So certainly at Travlaw, The team really is important. We're small, or relatively small firms, certainly within the definition of what the SRA and the Law Society would consider a small business. It doesn't work if we don't all work together and respect each other. There's no room for ego here. And again, you might be able to prove to me that you're the best lawyer, and I'd be stupid to kick you out the door, but if it comes with ego, I'll kick you out the door, and I won't feel bad about it. It's a bit nasty, wasn't it? A little bit more about Travlaw. I'm sure there was more to that slide than that. Yeah, oh look, someone set these things up. That was me. So we think we've got good brand recognition in our sector for what we do. As I say, punching above our weight, we think, for a small firm in suburban Leeds, we're not even in the centre. Our office is in Horsforth, serving global clients, brand names that everybody will recognise in the UK, and doing very well out of it. These are the main two, not the only two, but these are the main two ranking services in the UK. So they split it up into different types of work, and then kind of like you look in the, used to be a book, now it's online. Top law firms, top barristers, top individual lawyers, we get in here. And we are in some very good company. Some big law firms in there, and there's our name, Horsforth Law Firm, right there. When it comes to kind of in our sector, again, some people say, yeah, travel leisure, I want to do proper law. Again, you're welcome to go explore other things. We like what we do. It's pretty exciting, we think. It's pretty fun. It's something that you can get into, and it's a nice sector to work in. We're at the forefront of most of the things going on. All the big ticket litigation, not everything. I wish it could be, but there are other law firms out there. And again, being on the leading edge of what's going on. Regulatory-wise, there is I won't bore you with it, because it is semi-boring, but it's a big thing for the industry. Big changes, regulatory afoot. The government published a call for evidence document the other week. Within a couple of weeks of that, we did an event in London. Kind of sometimes has to be London, because just where you get more people turning up. We got a room full of people coming in, listening to us. We're at the forefront of explaining what it is, giving analysis. This is my big thing, that some of our competitors kind of put something out in e-shots and stuff, listing what was already out there. Well, that's useful enough. And if you don't know and you need a summary, it's great. We always try to give analysis. What does it mean to you? Why is it important? Why should you care? Straight from the outset. Okay, I think this is getting towards the end now. Some travel law stories about people who have worked from us and what can you expect from us. Right, so let me bore you with my story and a story of a couple of other people at Travlaw, because it's different ways to getting to where you want to be. Again, everybody here will have a different idea about what they may or may not want from a career in the law. When I was a student, I did a geography degree. So I ended up doing a conversion course, because at 18, 19, 20, 21, I had no idea what I wanted to do for a career. I'd only done geography because it was my favourite A-level. My A-levels were not blasting anyone away. They were not going to get me the university of my choice. They weren't bad, but they weren't great. So I ended up doing a geography degree. And then I basically applied for jobs up and down the country, basically the stuff that I like the sound of. I didn't have a plan, and I'm very kind of conscious that some people do have plans. They know exactly where they want to be. Some people don't, and I think that's okay. Because what happened to me is I kind of ended up getting a job. It was only meant to be for 6 months, start paying off some of the student debt, which was still around in those days. Wasn't as bad as what you guys might have now, in fairness, so I'm thankful for that, but there was student debt. So it was a 6-month job, and it was working for a company that was basically one of the arms of Thomas Cook, now defunct. And I started off answering the phones to angry people who, going back to my slide from a few moments ago, did have issues and complaints with their holiday. It's going to happen. And I did that for 6 months, and then I moved on to kind of writing letters to these people. So moving onwards and upwards. Letters of complaint, responses, and then I kind of started kind of overseeing a few other people, leading a team doing it, being a team leader, etc., etc. And then things started to become a bit more complex, and there was a need to kind of get more involved in kind of, oh, look, we've got these legal letters and small claims cases. Do you want to get involved in those, Matt? Okay, I will do. So this was within 3 or 4 years of graduation, something like that. Not super quick, but not super slow. And it was at that point where I thought, well, actually, I quite like this legal side of things. It kind of just seems to work in terms of my brain. If you'd gone back to kind of young Matt, 18 years old, and said, hey, you're going to be a lawyer, I'd have told you to do one, because I just didn't think that that was something I would want to do. So it's funny how these things work out. So I started doing some of that, found I liked it, seemed I was quite good at it, so started doing what was then a GDL, Graduate Diploma in Law, part-time whilst I was working full-time, so evenings and weekends, did that, then did the LPC, then moved to where I am now as a trainee solicitor. I've been in Bradford, that's where I'm from. Moved to Horsforth as a trainee solicitor, and less than 10 years later, again, I've moved from trainee to solicitor to associate, senior associate, partner, and now I'm senior partner and owner of the business. So it's funny how things work out. And my message there to students of any description is, I think if you've got a plan, great, go for it, focus on it, refine it, stick with it. Sometimes it might not work out. I don't think it's ever too late to change and do something that might end up being, kind of where you want to be. Shit happens. It's okay. Other stories, I mean, basically I'm only there because the senior partner at the time, a guy called Stephen Mason, literally wrote the book on travel and leisure. It's still published, coming up for another edition. He is the kind of godfather of travel law, such as a thing. Again, some people look at it and say, travel law, what's that? It's like, well, it's the thing that gives me a career. It's the thing that's really important to people like Jet2 and On the Beach, and any number of companies up and down the country, and indeed worldwide. It's really important to them. If you look at the kind of figures on kind of how much money there is in travel and leisure compared to things like fisheries and agriculture, it's actually quite impressive. There's a lot of money there. Don't you want to be part of that? Each to their own. But again, he kind of fell into it, he would say, almost by accident back in the day, many decades ago. And now it's an absolute thing. But we have people, as I say, who have come to us as work experience, as paralegals, and have ended up being partners. It's possible. There's no guarantee. You've got to work hard. You've got to impress people. You've got to impress clients. Sometimes the timings of it doesn't work. But it's the kind of place that I think all law firms should be, whereas you have a chance. And it isn't down to me and it isn't down to the firm. It's down, like, you're going to get this message loads, but it's true. It's down to you. And sometimes, actually, you might fall into something great. Sometimes you might do the most that anybody can do and it won't work. Generally speaking, you will have that opportunity that's there for you to have. And all we want to do is provide an environment where you have a fairer shot as anything at being able to prove yourself. What can you expect from working with Travlaw? Well, again, this is about as formal as it gets. We don't have a dress code. This is the first time I've worn a tie in about 4 years, so consider yourself lucky or unlucky, depending upon what you think about this particular ensemble. I'm not massively happy with it with myself, but I didn't have time before I went out the door. Too late for sartorial looking back now. We're very relaxed, but we are serious at the same time. We like to have a bit of a laugh and a joke in the office. We like to create an environment that is good, is a good place to work. But at the same time, again, we're doing important things for important people. So it's balancing the two. I think that's a really nice balance to have. But when people come on in placement with us, I was saying to Patrick, a lot of law firms, I don't know how true this is. I don't want to get sued by anybody. You go on a placement with them, welcome to the photocopier for 2 weeks. We don't do that here. We try to get people involved. We try to get people doing proper, full-on legal work that is appropriate. I can't bring you in and give you the kind of big ticket litigation to run with and let me know how it goes. But we can certainly, you can shadow people, you can follow people who have been with us before. We've certainly taken on someone permanently who was a student at Leeds Trinity a few years ago. We had someone last year who came in placement with us. It usually works. Again, we usually go through a process of actually kind of interviewing people to make sure, look, you might not like the sound of what we do, and that's okay, because you might want to. And we've certainly had people who come to work for us, and they're kind of like, yeah, it's nice, I like everybody, but what I really want to be able to do is to work in a big office like in town, with a big glass-fronted building, and tip out at 8 o'clock at night, and have a few drinks, and stay out, and then kind of come back the next day and do it again. You don't really get that in leafy suburban Horsforth. So again, it's different things for different people, and that's okay. But the main thing is you'll be given a chance, and we really enjoy having people in. Did I say you could ask questions? No, but I like the fact that you are asking a question, unless you just kind of needed to kind of stretch or something.
Did we get paid for this one?
We've never paid anybody before, is the honest answer. Oh. Yeah. Did we pay last year? It's a good question. I don't think we did, but I'm not closed to the potential. I think this is something we were asked actually by Trinity this time around. I was like, I'm not sure. What are we talking here? Expenses or full-on payment?
Not sure.
It's a fair question.
If I'm doing a placement, especially at work, law firm, I accept to get paid like, I don't know, like good amount of money.
It's a fair question. There's a cost of living crisis. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise.
The train tickets.
Yeah. And if you have choices and someone's prepared to pay, whether it's expenses or otherwise, and someone's not, which one are you going to pick? Depends, because you might really think, might be your dream to work in travel law. Why wouldn't it be? And we might not be offering money, whereas the firm doing conveyancing or something, which you really don't want to do, but they're paying. So you got to kind of start making these choices. And one of the things I always say, I like you already. What's your name? Simon. I like you ask questions. Right, I'll come back to you. One of the things I always say is, what's the ultimate game of people at this stage to get a training contract? Kind of slightly different now because we've got the SQE system, but I'm still calling them training contracts because they are based on the periods of recognised training. You want to qualify as a lawyer. That's most people's aim. I think, again, a lot of people end up with choices to make. Certainly, the competition is fierce. There is a kind of funneling effect where you are going to be competing at that stage with a lot of other people. And so someone might say, Sana, Sana, here's a job for you. We're pleased to offer you a job. It's in Plymouth. When can you start? So suddenly you've got the choice to make of, well, it's exactly what I want. It's at the complete other side of the country. I don't know it. How do I make that work? So again, things like payments suddenly become very relevant in terms of, well, do I want to do it? Do I want to leave my home, friends, family, etc., or do I stick it out here and then 5 years later on, still haven't got a training contract? Maybe it's good already. So there are going to be decisions to make. So that's a fair question. TBC, maybe. What are you going to do for me? You've got to work hard, come in, and do all that. Yes. Next question, Sam.
A lot of people go for money to think about it.
Say again.
In law, a lot of people think about money.
Yeah, they do.
And think about winning the cases.
Yeah, and there's.
Think in that sense.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
The money goes, the more money you give, the more they'll work hard for you.
So what you're saying, kind of like the more you pay, the better person you get. Yeah. There's absolutely something in that, for sure. The question for a law firm is, if I do interviews for a paralegal, it's not just me, there's a few of us. If I do interviews for a paralegal or a trainee post, we will get a couple of hundred CVs, responses. So we'll go through those. It's very difficult to kind of start to kind of say yes, no, but there's criteria that we will put on it based upon what we're looking for. And then we'll start doing interviews. So we might do a lot of interviews. Each and every one of those is saying the same thing. I'm the best lawyer you'll get. Employ me, I'm brilliant. How am I to know? At the end of the day, we'll pick the people or the person that we think is the best. Might not work out for whatever reason. So there's a certain amount of, trust. I don't mind people being ambitious. I don't mind people wanting to be paid lots. I get that. It's part of the driver. No one can work for free because we've all got bills to pay. So there's nothing wrong with that. But again, it's kind of finding the right place for you, and that is part of it. Is it your dream job, but it's 10% lower than the other job, which sounds hellish? Then you've got a decision to make. Which one do you go with? And you don't always know. And again, often, the decision comes down to kind of hindsight. Was it the right thing? Don't know. But there's nothing wrong with ambition. Don't mind that at all. Already got that bit. What else was I going to say? Ask any questions if you want. It is tough. It is tough. I remember being at your stage, and you kind of got your future laid out ahead of you. A lot of decisions to make. Obviously, you've got to do the work first and kind of get your qualifications, and then you move on to the next bit. And it's an increasing series of ladders. Go on, Sam.
So I feel like the more work experience you get in law firms, you kind of build on your skills, because mostly they look for your skills and the ability to work hard. So if that matches, then it's better. I think then you can do anything.
I think the advice that I give to people of any age, we get people approaching us that are kind of 16, that are kind of doing A levels, even GCSE students, which is a bit difficult to take because they're literally starting it. It kind of feels like it's not necessarily the best fit to come and do a law work experience, but we have done it. But the advice I give to everyone is try and get as much work experience done or experience as you can, which I know is easy to say because, again, a lot of people will take you on for free, so you've got to be able to take that on. But, kind of what I've said about Travlaw. If you come and we've had people who are like, well, this is nice, but it's just not for me. It's not the right kind of law. It's just not the right kind of fit. It's just not working for me. That's okay. And I think you should try and get experience of different kinds of firms, different sizes of firms, different sectors, different specialities. Just like with your studies, you might find that you particularly levitate towards one kind of thing and you really dislike some other kind of law. You know, I never really got on with land law and conveyancing and pensions and trusts and stuff. The person next to me is lapping that up, and now they're successful pensions and trust lawyers and probably earning more than me. Fair enough. But again, similarly, sometimes you don't know that. I always really liked family law. I never thought I liked family law, but when I studied it at university, you're going back a few years, I love that kind of thing. So again, it kind of opens doors. Similarly, we are one type of law firm. We are not the same as going to work in one of the large law firms in town. That's not the same as working in-house for a company doing kind of in-house roles. It's not the same as working in a citizens advice type bureau where you're dealing with law all the time. It's not the same as working for the police in one of their legal aspects. It's not the same as working for a court or a tribunal type function, or being a judge or an assessor or something like that. There are so many different things to do. What I would say is, and you are all in a good place, because I'm sure all the kind of subjects would say this, but the skills that you receive through law training are pretty good skills. You know, attention to detail, analysis, you know, analytical skills, all the stuff that you will see on the prospectus, you can transfer that to pretty much any job. And actually, I think one of the things that people would look for is, oh, you were a prospective lawyer, you did a legal degree or whatever, and I can see you've had a change of pace or change of factors where you want to be. They will see that and they'll think that's a good thing. It's very, you know, unlikely that people will say, oh, that's a bad thing that you studied law. My view. There we go. Keep them coming. Go on.
How many training contracts do you have?
The last few years have kind of thrown it out a little bit. We would usually be taking on probably one a year, because a training contract usually takes 2 years. So we're kind of usually taking on one a year. So it's kind of like, then you've kind of got this every, you know, year someone qualifies and you've got someone who's kind of halfway through the next one type thing. And then some, you know, we never take anybody on. To a degree, it's to do with need. If we have loads of legal work, if we're getting loads of instructions and we need more people, we're more likely to take people on. Pandemic was not a great time for travel and leisure businesses. It wasn't a great time for any of us. But again, being a niche law firm in travel and leisure seemed like a really good idea for many years, because it's not quite the same thing as you will definitely get born, you will definitely die, you will definitely need a haircut in the meantime. So these are things that you can get into where you will always have work. But until people don't want to go on holiday anymore, or don't want to travel anymore, whether it's for leisure or business, that seemed fairly solid. Along comes a pandemic. Literally, it's against the law to travel anywhere. So travel businesses suddenly start tanking. The fact that so many of them survived, I think, is an absolute testament to their ability to do so. But being an advisor to those companies when they're trying to cut spend left, right, and centre, don't have the legal name, that doesn't seem very clever. So we're kind of still in a bit of a recovery from that. So that's had an effect. But usually it's about one a year. But again, we will get multiple applications for those posts, as will, you know, any law firm puts them out, because they are hard to get, and they are worth a lot, because it gets you into the profession, which by that point you will have been studying what, 3, 4, 5, 6, you know, depending upon the exact route you take, years to get there. And you need to get there, because you've come that far, you can't stop there. God, Sam, you had another question, I think.
I was going to ask, I feel like, you know, when you learn law, that's different, but when you start working in placement, it's different, because you're using that skill and law,
Yeah.
like, you know, to put into like a real law, like, you know, you get to experience different, because, you know, when you're learning, it's different, but when you use that skill, it's different, so you build more like confident and new skills.
Yeah. When I was studying my GDL, so effectively at the same place where you are, I went to Huddersfield, and there were a couple of lecturers there who repeatedly said, oh, when you get to practice, it's different. The stuff that you learn here, it's not the same, almost diminishing it. And I don't think that's quite right, actually. Everything that you are learning now sets you in an amazing stall for what's to come next. Yes, what you will read in a textbook is not necessarily the same as giving practical advice to a client who has a need a problem to be solved. But what you are learning now, the stuff that you studied, sets all that up, and a lot of things that you will go back to time and time again. Being able to research something, for instance, the session that I just watched the end of, talking about AI and all that kind of side of things, it's changing the game. But at the end of the day, it's still research. You need to be able to do it properly. And if I say to you, I need you to go off and research this and come back to me by this afternoon with an answer, I'm going to want all the same stuff, because if you give me the answer and I don't know where you've looked, what you've looked at, what your assessment process has been, I'm going to go off and tell you to do it again, because that's not good enough. So that's going to be the same, because I've got to basically then turn that into an advice to a client. And if it's wrong and I can't see what the working is, that doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for them. Won't work for you either. So there's plenty of stuff that, yes, it is different once you get into practice, because it's a different ball game. But it's still the same environment. So it's really important. Okay, that's a lot of talking. Most of them are back to the camera, which the people at home will like. Thank you. I think that's it, unless anyone has any further questions, and by all means catch me afterwards. I'm more than happy to chat. Thank you for listening, and thank you for tuning in. The clapping is forced.
Thank you for that, Matt. It's much appreciated.
No questions? No.
Oh, I thought we had a lot of questions there. That was good. Thank you. It's nice to get questions.
No more questions.